Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the Works Committee meeting of the Region of Durham. It's March 8th, 2023. It's 9:30. I'd like to start the meeting. We wanted to welcome everyone to the meeting. We have a number of staff members that are here today, and we have a presentation that will be made in short order. Before I begin the meeting, I just wanted to let you know that I'll be chairing the meeting on behalf of Mayor Barton and deferring also to council members that are operating virtually. And we have full quorum today as well, joined in the council chamber by Councillor Crawford. And we have, well, you're not Councillor Watton, you're Councillor McDougall. You're usually over there with me. And want to welcome you here today. So want to move into the declarations of interest. If our committee members, we got to do the roll call. So I'm new at this. I was going to take a motion to adjourn right off the bat, but we'll go to roll call. I was wearing my city hat there. At the city, we actually do the roll call in our head and make sure everyone's, in the meeting in quorum. So thank you for the heads up, Chair Henry, who is also in the chamber with us today and participating in the meeting in person. Declarations of interest from committee members virtually. I don't have any signal from committee members indicating a declaration. I don't have any in the chamber either. Looking around, also want to welcome Mayor Schumer and Mayor Watton. Moving into the adoption of the minutes, could I get a motion to adopt the minutes? Motion to adopt, Councillor Crawford, second by Councillor Henry. Chair Henry, statutory public meetings. Do we have anyone in opposition to the adoption of the minutes? Anyone with notes or issues with the minutes? The motion to adopt the minutes has been passed. Hearing no opposition. Statutory public meetings, we have none. We have presentations, though, and I'd like to welcome, dealing with 5.1, Joseph Anello, Director of Waste Management Services. Oh, sorry. Oh, we have that. Joseph's not with us, so Ramesh? Okay. Ramesh and Andrew. Okay. My apologies. Commissioner and Director. Oh, okay. Who do we have today? Nicole?
All right.
All right. You guys are doing switchies on me. You wouldn't do this to
Musical chairs. The last one standing. I get to start. Lucky me.
Thank you.
Good morning. Good morning, Chair Mayor Petrie and members of Works Committee and visiting councillors. Chair Henry, thank you very much for the opportunity this morning to provide some introductory comments to your deliberations on the 2024 Works Committee business plans and budgets. I just want to start by thanking Commissioner Jagannathan and his team, Christine Dunkley, and the rest of the leadership team for their cooperation, support as we developed this budget together for you this morning for Works Committee. I also want to thank the leadership of the CAO and the Commissioner of Finance as well for their guidance, and for my team as we pulled together the package for you this morning. So the 2024 business plans and budgets is aligned with the council approved guideline of 7.5%. It supports the region's strategic plan, and you'll see in the body of the report as well as the budget document that there's a number of initiatives that advance our climate change objectives under our strategic plan as well. There's a significant investment in critical core services that meet our growing needs of our community, both on an operational side with respect to our stops for waste, for collection and processing, as well as our roads operations. It advances critical growth-related and asset management capital infrastructure to support the provincial housing targets. We have a 2024 capital plan of $165 million before you today, and a 9-year forecast of just shy of $3 billion. So a very significant capital forecast planned over the next 10 years. And lastly, the budget responds to the significant inflationary pressures and capital cost escalations, and you can see that both throughout the operating budget and the capital budget as well. In terms of process, following your deliberations on the budget today, it will go before Finance and Administration Committee as part of the overall regional budget for deliberation on March the 19th, and then on to Regional Council at the end of the month on March 27th for deliberation and approval. And I'll just turn it over to Commissioner Jagannathan to get into the detail. Thank you very much.
Good morning, and committee chair and members of the Works Committee and regional chair and staff. It's my pleasure today to present to you the 2024 budget. The budget that I'm going to be discussing today covers aspects including roads, bridges, facilities, and solid waste management. The proposed budget in front of you for approval today is about $310 million. That includes about $220 million for roads and infrastructure, and the remaining $90 million for solid waste management. It's been an extensive effort trying to come to this point, and I would like to acknowledge the efforts of Nicole Pincombe and team in finance, and certainly Christine Dunkley and that team behind her in the Works Department. As Nicole mentioned, the guideline has been met, so we are on to implementation. So like I said, roads and infrastructure is the component I'm going to be talking about today. And when I'm done with it, I'll hand it over to Andrew Evans, who's the Director of Waste Management, who at the end will be turning it over back to me for some highlights. So on the roads and infrastructure, we've had a very busy year in 2023. So I want to talk about some of the accomplishments in 2023, namely the service improvements. Like we did rehab of about 12 kilometers of regional roads, including the installation of wider paved shoulders on rural roads. So that's an asset management function, as well as trying to provide a safer environment for cyclists. We did some significant high-profile projects. We opened the third roundabout in Clarington at Regional Road 57 and 3. The first one being the one we did in Uxbridge many years ago, and then we recently did Pefferlaw, and this is the third one. As the committee would know, roundabouts are acknowledged as a significant Vision Zero improvement. And we did a significant bridge replacement project, which is Cochrane Street and Whitby. As you know, the Cochrane Street Bridge and Cochrane, along with Henry, was turned over to the town of Whitby last year. And last but not the least, in terms of high-profile projects, was the road widening from 2 to 4 lanes on Westney between Roslyn and Taunton. We also advanced the regional cycling network to provide residents with a safe and accessible network. We added about 14 kilometers of cycling facilities. The examples that come to my mind is Lake Ridge Road north of Myrtle. The one we did was Westney north of Roslyn to Taunton was multi-use paths and so on. On the customer service front in 2023, again, our accomplishments were plenty. We acquired several properties to advance capital projects. We negotiated many leases, including a couple of high-profile ones, in 312 Colburn and 117 King Street in Whitby, to operate a shelter. And 710 Wilson Road South, that was a lease we negotiated for DRPS as a replacement for the operations that were impacted by the fire in the Clarington facility. We also acquired numerous property for our road capital projects that brought us close to shovel readiness for 2024. The highlighting ones were about 20 properties on the Highway 2 corridor to advance bus rapid transit, and 6 properties for Durham Road 57 widening from Baseline to King Street West, which you will see in the 2024 budget. So it's quite shovel ready based on that. And we did facilitate the purchase and refurbishment of the former long-term care home in Whitby, 1635 Dundas, to accommodate 45 low-barrier shelter beds, which as the first phase is going to be open in short order. Still on customer service, the construction of the long-term care facility in Seaton is ongoing. We are expecting that to be open sometime this year. We've completed a lot of asset management projects, including roads and facilities and depots and so on. We continue to operate close to 700 signals, including several APS installations. And the winter, unlike this year, last year was not As mild, we had 51 winter storms, including 9 significant ones. We continued our Vision Zero initiatives on several emphasis areas, as you know, such as aggressive driving and speeding and so on. We focused on many measures, including engineering, enforcement, and education. Engineering, as I mentioned, we are advancing a number of roundabouts. We completed a lot of safety reviews, many pedestrian crossings, and so on. On the enforcement side, the automated speed enforcement, at the end of 2023, we had about 14 cameras deployed across 36 community safety and school zones. We operated a total of about 3,500 camera days, estimated 60,000 plus fines issued, and a very notable and sustained increase in speed compliance. So that's been a very successful program. Our red light camera program has continued with 12 fixed locations, 4,380 camera days, and about 2,500 fines issued. You will see in 2024, we are trying to hold the line on both the camera programs, because the focus in 2024 is going to be finding efficiencies in terms of moving from the court system to the administrative penalty system, APS or AMPS. And, for legal department, along with traffic, is leading that initiative. And of course, we continue to do a lot of education, especially on roundabouts, which we are only scratch the surface in Durham in terms of cross rides, pedestrian crossover. Our education also continues on things like ASC and our red light cameras in partnership with the DRPS as well. 2023 was as good as 2022 and the years before. Staff and projects got recognized in the industry in many forms, and venues, a couple of highlights here. One was the OPWA Project of the Year Award in the less than $2 million category for the micro home supportive housing project we did in Oshawa the year before. And also we got another OPWA Award of the Year, Project of the Year Award, again in less than $2 million category, but in the road rehab roadside for Road 18. As you recall, we did that last year using recycled materials. So the roads and infrastructure budget is about $220 million. The significant portion, about $163 million or 75%, is for capital and debt servicing. That's a lot of road projects in terms of growth projects for expansions, including transit supportive rapid transit projects on Highway 2. And these projects are funded about 28% by property tax. We still have a good injection of ICIP, or which is the provincial and federal funding for BRT. The base budget increase, as Nicole Pincombe had highlighted, we've had a lot of pressure in 2024 to address in our budget, including about $1.7 million in inflationary increases, economic increases of about $1.3 million. And of course, the next big one is about $800 million each. One is for annualizing the 2023 positions, and the other one is to debt service some of the capital projects we have planned for the depots, especially including Ajax Pickering and replacement of the Whitby, Oshawa, and the Sunderland depot. Just to touch on the capital projects in roads and infrastructure, there's about $116 million we are proposing 2024 for a wide range of growth projects and rehab projects, including the Highway 2 BRT segments. About $44 million, as I mentioned, for Ajax Pickering Depot expansion, which is going to remain in the same location. Whitby, Oshawa, and Sunderland maintenance depots, we are in the process of negotiating property acquisitions for both locations, which the $44 million in 2024 would allow us to advance design once we get the property secured. There's another $1.5 million for ongoing implementation of Durham Vision Zero countermeasures. The planning framework is similar to previous years. As you would all recall, the Transportation Master Plan, which was really built with the Durham Strategic Plan as the foundation, provides a long-term roadmap for road locations that are looking for expansions with DC funding, Certainly intersection modifications to open up capacity and improve safety at intersections, BRT expansions, which we are now focusing primarily on Highway 2, but Simcoe is the next one we have our eyes on. Certainly asset management, both in terms of structures and roads for pavement condition index, that's how we prioritize them. Structures, we prioritize them based on age and other features, but at the end of the day, on an aggregate bridge condition index known as BCI. And other than that, we have goals about active transportation, wanting to advance the strategic goods movement network where we can have full loads year round. Certainly, we talked about Vision Zero, and embedded in all these projects are a whole bunch of climate change considerations, such as how we do wider paved shoulders now on rural rehabs, just to not only to provide a safer cyclist environment, but also to to prevent shoulder erosion and from a climate change adaptation perspective. Okay, in the next 19 slides, I'm just going to run through some of the highlighted projects that have 2024 funding for construction. Doesn't necessarily mean that they will actually see construction in 2024. Typically, our best ideal goal is to tender them in the same year and see construction next year so that we get the very competitive prices for the year after. So I'm certainly not intending to walk through all these 19 slides, but the first slide I'll take a minute just to give it as a template. The idea is to, have counselors and staff as well as a resource material. Usually I find it getting into Facebook the same day, so I do see this as a valuable resource. So just as a template, to take this as an example, it says Regional Road 1 from Road 5 to 200 meters north of Town Line Road. It's a road rehabilitation project, which means it's all about increasing or improving the pavement surface and the rideability comfort. No prior budget approval. The second line talks about the budget in 2024, which is 2.2 million. So the total is 2.2 million, whether it's on the regional cycling plan or no. Why is it relevant? If it's on the regional cycling plan, when we do a road rehab, typically it's going to get 2 to 2.5 meters paved shoulder. If it's not, it still gets about 1 to 1.5 based on traffic volume and so on. So the project driver in this case is rehab. In other slides, you may see growth related. And to describe why we are doing this, it's a very poor pavement condition index, which means it's typically less than 10, 20, at the low end. It's a 2-lane rural segment. It's on the strategic goods movement network. That means, typically we do that to full load. And the status tells us, where are we in the tendering process? We are expecting to tender this in the, March to June timeframe. And the construction is anticipated to commence in 2024 and be completed in 2024. Coordination with adjacent projects, in this case, it's not applicable, but typically we highlight projects that we need to be aware of, whether it's being done by MTO or Metrolinx or local municipalities. Make sure we minimize disruption to the community from a high level. Okay, so I spent about a minute on this slide, but the next ones I'm going to run through because it's the same template. The second one is in Scugog, Simcoe from River Street to Saintfield. It's $2.7 million. Again, these slides are sequenced in order of construction anticipation. So this is also 2024. It's a rehab project. Then I've got Myrtle Road the Simcoe project, and the next one, which is Myrtle from Dagmar to west limit of Ashburn. This is also road rehab projects, but these two projects are unique in the sense they're going to be using recycled glass. You would recall the report that came to Works Committee and Council about, I think, late last year. Certainly we are in close coordination and communication with MECP and MTO to, try and make this another poster child for the Circular Economy Initiative. So Myrtle is a rehab, and I've got, again, another one in Shirley from Simcoe to Graham Road. It's a road rehab, 1.2 million. Again, this is anticipated tender late this year. And it's a short segment. We're expecting to complete it in the same year. And Thixton from Wentworth to CN Rail. This is a growth project, as you can see. So widening from 2 to 4 lanes. Again, 2024 construction anticipated, a single year construction. It's a big project, 8.1 million. Wentworth from Park Road to west of Cedar. This is in Oshawa. This is the first segment. As you know, in the forecast, we have other 2 segments east of Cedar Street that goes up to Fairwell. So this one again is going to be 2024. Highway 2 from Ovens to Town Line Road Rehab 2024. 47, this is in Uxbridge Road Rehab 2024. Now we are moving into two-season projects, 2024-2025. The first one is Grandview from 401 to Columbus Road. You would recall, this project, the two segments have some steep hills and geometric deficiencies that will be corrected. So it'll be a big safety enhancements. Taunton and Anderson, this is the one near Sinclair School in Whitby. It's been in the making for a few years now. It's been delayed a little bit due to utilities and property, but now we are confident we can tender this in 2024 for completion by 2025. This would basically modify the intersection to provide turning lanes in all approaches. Left turn lanes, right turn lanes will be a significant both operational and safety improvement, including, I believe, a westbound right turn lane to go into Sinclair School. Fable Street from Harbor Road to Blue Street. Again, there's been a bit of a delay on this project, but for good reasons. We've tried to make the project as much better with some delay in terms of cycling facilities in partnership with City of Oshawa. So it's 2024-25 construction, $8.6 million. Road 3 from Town Line to Enfield Road, again road rehab, 2025 construction. That's a big project, $7.9 million. Taunton from east of Town Line to west of Enfield, road rehab, $12.5 million. Reach, again, we've talked, Councillor McDougall, we've talked about this a few times, from Old Simcoe to Biglow, I believe, that's the way you pronounce it. 2025 construction. Zephyr in Uxbridge from concession 3 to concession 4. Thixon and Roslyn intersection modifications. Now we are all into 2025 construction. Like you see, the status is all described in terms of what would need to happen in order for all this to stay on course for 2025. Olive Avenue from Simcoe to Drew Street. Again, this is a segment that's not impacted by the Gibb Street, Gibb Olive realignment. This is the remnant piece likely to become local. Liberty from Longworth to Concession Road 3. This will be our next roundabout in the making. Lake Ridge from Bailey to Kingston. This will be a significant project, $16 million. It'll be done along with the coordinated with the BRT project on Kingston Road. So those are all the road expansion and rehab projects. Certainly we have $18 million for bridge rehabs and replacements. And thanks to some good back and forth with finance, we've been able to increase this budget significantly. As you know, many of our structures are 50 plus years old. They are starting to, demand our attention. Certainly, so last year I think it was closer to $13 million. So this is one area where I think over the next coming years we're going to be under significant pressure as our bridges are now becoming 50, 60, 70 years old. So we have 5 bridges to be replaced. All of them, majority of them are on regional cycling plan, which means typically they get paved shoulders as part of the replacement, as well as they will get cycle height barriers to improve cyclist safety. And we have some, one rehab, which is a culvert. Other activities, they add up to about $18 million. 2024 traffic programs, it's really staying the course. Signal installation, $2.4 million. We've got about 20 signals in the pipeline, which I will show in the next slide. Signal modernization program, the usual asset management, controller enhancements, and so on. It includes things like advanced left turns. APS installation, about $1 million. Road safety program is all about things like speed, radar, feedback devices, and so on. ITS projects. UPS installation, which is a climate change adaptation feature to make sure that all our signals are UPS installed. The new ones are all automatically coming with UPS, but the old ones are being retrofitted. And the ATMS upgrades is basically our infrastructure in the traffic control center at 101 Consumers Road, which is all nearing end of life. I know traffic signals are of large interest to many councillors and as well the residents in your communities. These are the installations planned in 2024. Not all of them are from 2024 budget. Some of them are from previous years that are coming close to shovel ready. The ones that draw my attention here are Taunton at Northbrook, Patton Street near the airport, which I know we've talked about quite a bit with many Oshawa staff. Similarly, like Winchester and Bridal, like near Costco, like I know that's been wanting some attention. In Pickering, there's been a lot of demand for signal at Brock Road and Usman Road. These are the ones that catch my attention. And in addition, there's about 15, 20 signals roughly that are in various stages of design, which will either come on board in 2024 or 2025. So Vision Zero traffic safety initiatives, as you know, our goal is to reduce our fatal and injury collisions by 10% over 5 years. I think, looking back at the data over the last 5 years, we have pretty much accomplished that goal, but pandemic was was a catalyst in that, but we still think we've done a lot of countermeasures. We are due for an update for the next 5 years, so expect to see a draft plan coming soon, with some updated targets and so on. So we got about 3.5 million in 2024. I mentioned BRT projects. There are 3 projects already, in the nearing the tendering phase, subject to some First Nations consultation. But in 2024, we have 2 more segments. One is from Altona to Notion, $11.5 million. And the other one is from Westney to 412, $20 million, so $33 million. We don't expect to be tendering it this year, but certainly, we are advancing it to make it shovel ready. And that includes about $24 million in external funding, which is a combination of provincial and federal funding. So not to lose sight of many other tenders that you would be seeing construction start in 2024. These are funded from previous year's budgets. The first 2 ones are in Uxbridge, which I know is of great interest to our Works Committee chair, who is not here. So that we are pretty confident we are going to be able to tender it in the April, May, June timeframe for construction start this year. Road 2A Center Street reconstruction from King to Adelaide, that's going to be a major project given it's Oshawa downtown. We are in close coordination. It also has a significant water and sewer component. Maybe not water, just sewer, I think, but it does have a non-road component. And we're going to have our other roundabout, Road 457, and of great interest to Brock Township, which I've talked to Mayor Schumer and others many, many times over the recent years. We are going to be doing the next phase of Road 13 from east of Lake Ridge to west of Side Road 17. Highway 2 from Harwood to Galea, we are expecting to tender it this year, again, subject to some final consultations we are having with First Nations. And Highway 2 on Newtonville Road, which I've had numerous conversations with Councillor Anderson and Mayor Foster about as well in Newtonville. Not to forget, there are some projects we started last year, which we'll be coming back once we come back to full load, which would be Simcoe from Olive to John and Bowmanville Avenue from south of Highway 2 to Stevens Road. With that, I'm going to turn it over to Andrew Evans for solid waste management. Thank you.
Thanks, Ramesh. I'm pleased to present the budget overview for the Solid Waste Management Department. As Ramesh indicated, thanks to the finance team and the Works finance team for putting this budget together over the last year. It's a significant amount of work as we move through it. Just starting off with some of the service improvements and accomplishments for 2023. We awarded an organics processing contract for a 10-year time frame to address our short-term needs. And that came in significantly below previous contracts. So a big win there for us and big impact into the budget. We constructed a pilot biocover system at the closed Oshawa landfill site to look at the effectiveness of biocover as an effective methane reduction method that could be expanded to our other closed landfills within the region. And we developed agreements with service providers to continue curbside selection services to designated small businesses, so within the region's business improvement areas, as we transition to extended producer responsibility. From a customer service perspective, we continued large numbers at our waste management facility, servicing over 320,000 customers, largely at Oshawa. Developing updated waste management education programs for elementary and high school, really driving curriculum context, as well as videos on the rest of our waste management services and initiatives. And overall, we continue to manage a large quantity of material, 228,000 tons, within the waste diversion and disposal programs operated by the region. In terms of our 2024 budget, so the budget, is, as mentioned, is approximately $90 million. Largely that is collection, processing, and disposal, be it within the Blue Box, Organics, or the DYAC for our solid waste. Additionally, waste management facility cost, waste management centers, community outreach, and other programs. And that's largely funded by the tax base, in addition to electricity revenue, material revenue, industry funding, and contributions from reserves. In terms of our 2024 strategic investments, firstly, the continued design of the updated Oshawa Waste Management Facility. Really, the goal is to optimize the use of that facility to ensure it can continue to service our population. That facility, on its busiest days, can handle between 1,800 and 2,000 cars a day, which translates to a car going through that facility every 15 to 20 seconds. Anyone who's used the facility knows, they do get traffic through, but there can be significant lines and traffic impacts, and we're looking to increase the capacity of that facility, as well as make it easier for residents to divert material. Additionally, investments as we implement extended producer responsibility in the region, we're seeing some savings in the Blue Box program, which we'll cover in a separate slide. We continue to see a number of base pressures across the region. Inflation, supply chain, remain consistent. In addition, we see year-over-year increases in collection, disposal, and processing costs as we move through CPI and fuel adjustments and other economic increases. Additionally, offsets from one-time line items and line-by-line savings, as well as previously mentioned the organics processing contract. With respect to the expanded Blue Box program, that drove a large amount of savings for us this year, and that's made up from decreases in our processing and collection contracts, revenue generation from the leased material recovery facility. However, we do, in hand with that, lose provincial funding and commodity revenue from that facility and those operations. As well as mentioned last month during the presentation to Works Committee, we do have to arrange additional contracts, be it for business improvement areas, collection of batteries, which was done previously alongside the Blue Bin, and supporting our waste management facilities. Additionally, in terms of strategic highlight, with the transition out of the extended producer responsibility, we're continuing to refocus on organics. And we'll be launching an expanded green bin program on July 1st of this year. That will increase the amount of materials to include diapers, pet waste, and other personal care products. And as part of that, we will be looking to distribute up to 35,000 green bins at a subsidy rate for residents to ensure that they have the proper space to put that material out at the curb. Talking about risks and uncertainties, certainly extended producer responsibility is driving the forefront risk for that. As programs, as that program transitions, if it fails to be a full success, it could result in additional material winding back up into the garbage stream and managed by the region at cost. We are looking at additional contract costs to mandate some of the shoulder load from that program that we were providing under the Blue Bin program previously. As well as there's some uncertainty in regards to material commodity pricing and industry funding. Additionally, as we transition to organics, the uptake on that program will have potential significant impacts on the budget as material is moved between the green bin program, or out of the garbage program and into the green bin program rather. Additionally, negotiations for a shared services agreement with the City of Oshawa and Town of Whitby to implement a multi-residential green bin service are ongoing, and the terms of that agreement could impact operating budgets moving forward. And I will turn it back over to Ramesh to talk about staffing.
Thank you, Andrew. Chairman, I'm just seeing GM Holmes, General Manager Holmes. I'm reminded on the Highway 2 BRT project slide, I missed a point. We will be doing a report or a presentation to a future committee of the whole to give a lot more details about the Highway 2 BRT and the Simcoe Rapid Transit. No, you can. But I something I missed from my speaking note. Sorry.
Thank you.
Okay. So if I could take a few minutes, committee members and chair, to talk about some of the staffing challenges and risks and uncertainties and future budget pressures. Okay, Works Department assessment, it's no secret that it takes human resources to build assets, operate assets, maintain assets, and not to mention do it all in an accountable manner. So we have done a thorough assessment of the Works Department. It was driven by many considerations, including the recent changes in legislation and housing pledges and how shovel-ready are we in terms of project delivery and so on. So clearly the region needs to invest in infrastructure to achieve the various targets that are coming our way, but it's not just the capital infrastructure, but it's also the human resources capital. We have modestly grown our workforce over the recent years. And really, that's been key to catering to about 5,000 to 6,000 households growth per year over the last 10 years. But we are projecting, if all the goals as per the various legislation and the housing pledges were to come true, we're talking about 8,000 to 9,000 per year. So that's increase in 40 to 50% in terms of getting the project shovel ready and delivery and so on. So with that background, the region engaged a third-party consultant to look at the Works Department's structure and culture, mainly in terms of are we adequately resourced, are we adequately structured, and in combination, therefore, in a position to meet the demands of the upcoming decade. Some of the findings from the assessment was obvious, but clearly it was good to get an independent third-party validation that basically said, yes, we need to ramp up our resources. We've been typically growing our staff complement in the order of about 15, 16 per year over the last 10 years. That's going to make us fall behind in terms of shovel readiness significantly. So the study also showed that the region and the region Works Department is a bit unique in the sense we undertake a lot of enterprise-wide functions, such as, for example, we have about 200 facilities across the region that's managed, operated, and maintained by facilities, including roughly half of them are work-centric. So that's something that was brought to our attention and this was all based on interviews of pretty much the entire Works Department. We had a roughly 62% response rate. So we had very good participation. Many management members were interviewed, including some other department heads. So all that also brought us to a finding that we need a long-term workforce planning module in the department. Certainly, the challenges highlighted were about attracting talent in this very competitive market. So based on those findings, the key recommendations was to increasing the focus on capital project delivery. Right now, the capital project delivery is really dispersed across different branches within Works. So the idea is to centralize it and make these projects shovel ready. As I mentioned, typically our projects are tendered the year after, and some of them are even 2 years later. In part, it's because of utilities and property and so on, but it's also in part because we don't have enough resources, for example, in real estate to negotiate properties, more aggressively expropriate and so on. So all that came to light through this process. So in 2024, we have put in some seed funding to the tune of $935,000. This is really a minimum requirement that we have identified in 2024 in order to be up our game on asset management, capital projects, and maintaining much larger road network and bridge and the aging bridge infrastructure and so on. So in addition to those staffing pressures, there are several other risks and uncertainties. Some of them are carried through every year, but I'll probably highlight only the ones that are probably unique to 2024. Certainly the Bill 23, Bill 134, we've talked about the pressures of DC revenues and so on. One of the things related pressure is if we start to delay growth projects, which typically also has a rehab component to increase the pavement index, improve the pavement condition, soon you're going to start putting more pressure on operating dollars to manage your assets. So that's something we need to keep an eye on. Certainly there's a huge scarcity for good talent in the industry, especially after the pandemic. I'm yet to conclude whether like we are able to attract more people from far away because we are in hybrid, or like it's too early to tell. But overall, there's much more demand for talent, like year by year. So that's going to be a challenge for us. We talked about inflation, which is certainly, hopefully, we'll get some relief in 2025, if not 2026. Yeah, certainly the community demands, I have to say, like, with the 7 or 8 years I've been in the portfolio, the community demands are significantly increasing as well in terms of whether it's about pavement condition expectations and safety features and so on. So that's continuing. The forecasted pressures beyond 2020 so in 2025, you would have the annualization impact of 2024 positions, and Andrew spoke about pressures related to the blue box transition. Certainly, growth continues to be a pressure, on certainly asset management and maintenance. And I talked about the maintenance operations depots. So all 3 depots, as you know, are quite old, 40, 50 years old. So they all need a lot of attention. The Works Department is continuously supporting more and more corporate initiatives, which has really worked out well. We will be due for replacing the fuel management system, which is quite old as well. Andrew spoke about the need to optimize the region's waste management facilities due to the increasing traffic. And certainly we talked about the more demand for maintenance. Legislative requirements, again, this is we've talked about the various legislation that's putting pressure. Vision Zero countermeasures, one of the, I suppose, downsides of a successful program is, we need to implement more, and it's a good thing, but it certainly puts pressure both on staffing and finances. Last but not the least is, the Professional Engineers Act has been recently amended to make a lot of mandatory training for, we have about, I think in the order of 100 plus professional engineers in works, there's mandatory training requirements. That's putting some pressure on training and conferences. So with that, that ends my presentation, Committee Chair, but I would, if you would allow me, please quickly acknowledge many other staff here. It takes a lot of human resources to deliver a budget like this, starting from Lipika and meet Peter Vega in waste management. I've got Paul G. and Janet Mosher from transportation infrastructure, and Reed McGregor from transportation design. Certainly, we've had some collaboration with Durham Region Transit as well. Thank you, and over to you, Chairman.
Commissioner, I wanted to thank you and the department as well, and everyone that's been involved in the budget making throughout the process. Director Pincombe, Director Evans, and each of the directors that have been involved. I know that it's important that the acknowledgement goes out, from the top down. I think I think you hit the nail right on the head when you consider the investment and the expenditures that we incur as a result of different pressures, but the accountability that we have. I think pound for pound, the region of Durham does, I think, the best job in all of the country. So, especially the Works Department. I'm a little biased to that. So I wanted to make sure that that was acknowledged, and thank you very much for the presentation. I would like to advance the correspondence and have them referred to the report, and then have the report, but procedurally I'm going to ask clerks whether they wish for us to advance the report first, and I'll defer to Sarah to advise what you'd like us to do before I go to committee and then visiting councillors for their questions. So if you just bear with us, I want to make sure that we do this properly. Report. Okay. So I'll take a motion from Chair Henry and seconded by Councillor Crawford to advance report 2024 W6. So we'll alter the agenda to do that. So that's the motion, to alter the agenda to advance that report. Any in opposition to that? Seeing and hearing none, we've now got the report on the floor. And if there are any questions, I do have, just wanting to acknowledge that with us in the committee today are Councillor Yamada, Councillor Nicholson, Councillor Mulcahy, Councillor Crawford, Councillor Cook, and Chair Henry, along with our CAO, Madam CAO, and staff. So at this moment, we have Councillor Crawford, Councillor Mulcahy, and then Chair Henry, who would like to speak. So I'll defer to Councillor Crawford. Good morning. The floor is yours.
Thank you. Good morning. Thank you very much. It always blows me away how much work gets done in this committee. I mean, in this department, there's so much that's getting done. So if I ask a question that is out of order, I'm sure you'll rule me. So the signalization under the BRT project, is that all covered under the ICIP grant? It's all covered?
Yeah.
So it makes no sense to do anything individually because we know Highway 2 is a mess, right? The intersections are a disaster at any given point. Any police officer in the West Division will tell you that. So there's no point in putting any kind of investment into intersections until we put that BRT through.
Oh, absolutely. It'll be throwaway. And I think the solution to traffic congestion on corridors like Highway 2 is evolving. I think in the near future, you'll be seeing a lot of artificial intelligence solutions to keep progression going. But to your point, there's about 73% external funding, 27% regional funding. So anything that you do now will be throwaway.
Right. So ideally, in a perfect world, the tender would be given in 2024 for Harwood to Galea, correct, in Ajax?
Yes.
That's the only section that will get done.
Yeah, the other two, we expect they will be tendered in 2024, but likely start construction 2025. Like, we are still in ongoing discussions with one of the First Nation communities. So until we resolve that, I don't have that with certainty. But certainly Harwood to Galea, like, we are confident it's going to go this year.
What are we trying to get from them?
First Nations
Yeah.
community.
Just that we have to, that's part of the agreement,
It's
or
part
is
of the
there a
engagement.
permission?
No, they've, I think, requested a lot more archaeological studies and so on, and it's not unusual, but
Okay.
it is causing some delays. Yeah.
Okay. So again, the new cycle lights that are going up, for some reason, cause quite an irritant to my residents. Why are there two? Is that just the way they are? You get them in twos?
Yeah, because the cyclists are treated same as vehicles, right? Vehicles get two in case one goes away. Like, for whatever reason, one malfunctions, there's still one.
Did you know that? You didn't know that? No. We're
There's
both
a few-
cyclists. We don't know that.
There's a few other reasons, but this is probably the simplest reason. I know if I talk to Mr. Kemp, he's got a few more reasons, but the basic reason is it's consistent with how we give signal displays for
Okay.
vehicles, same as that.
Okay. My husband, who isn't a cyclist, asked me that, and I didn't know. Has there been any consideration for the region to take over Vision Zero on municipal roads? In the spirit of redundancy, is there any, because I see it being a huge benefit to the smaller municipalities who possibly won't be able to put a Vision Zero type program through their own municipal roads. Is there any consideration for that? And if this is not the right time to be asking that question, I will take it away. But I know we've talked about it before.
Yeah, through the chair, we have that now. Our Vision Zero strategy, it was a collaborative effort,
But not on municipal roads. So for instance, we, Ajax, have our own cameras. Pickering has their own cameras. Whitby's looking at their cameras.
Okay.
That's
So
what I mean.
You're not talking about the Vision Zero strategy, you're talking
No.
about the automated speed enforcement.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Sorry.
Okay.
Yeah, my bad.
Yeah, that is something I think at least as staff, and we've talked about it, Works Committee as well, ideally it has to be all or nothing.
Right.
Right now Pickering is doing their own, and Oshawa, Ajax is doing their own, and Oshawa has been talking about it. And over the last 2 years, we've been focusing on getting the program working and whatever. This year, our focus is really transitioning to the administrative penalty system, and we are now planning to meet with my 8 counterparts to see if there's an appetite to get into a joint program.
Okay.
The timing is perfect because we are nearing the end of the previous contract.
Yeah.
Now I'm also hearing there are more vendors in the market, such as City of Barrie is looking at their own, but I know Town of Whitby is looking at their own too.
Mm-hmm.
So I think ideally we would do it only if the region is going to do it for all 8. Otherwise, probably defeats the purpose in
Right.
terms of economies
No,
of
it would
scale.
have to be all. Yeah. Okay. That sounds more positive than it was in the past when we talked about this. So I was just curious. So with the expanded green bin program, does it not make sense to give the first extra green bin for free if we're going to get buy-in? And then anything additional could be done at a reduced rate?
So obviously they get one bin now, even
Yeah.
under the existing program.
Yeah.
The second one, we looked at several scenarios, and you may recall when we were trying to do the guideline, originally it was 7.5 and 6.5 and 5 and so on. In the earlier scenarios, we did have it as a giveaway, but in order to try and meet the guideline, we had to have it somewhat subsidized. My personal opinion is it's not a bad thing. If you really want to, it's still a good deal. I think it's about $20 per bin that we charge. You go to Walmart and whatever, probably not as durable. It's about $40 a bin. So I would hope people wanting to do the right thing would not balk at 50% subsidy, but
You
that's
would
the
be
history.
surprised what they would balk at.
Okay, but that's the history behind why we had to come with a 50% subsidy.
Okay. I noticed in one of the slides, and I'm sorry I didn't mark it, something about money getting taken away, 6 million, was it $6 million that were taken away from, maybe I read it wrong. Hang on, it's in the waste,
Blue boxes,
Yeah.
2.6 million from the city of Oshawa in savings.
no, there was
No, it's the entire program, right? So basically, the extended producer
yes,
responsibility
yeah, the
gives
6,
that away to now it's Circular Materials, which is the EPR contractor.
so the
that's
loss of
coming off.
provincial funding
Yeah,
and commodity revenue is $6 million.
yeah, it's a combination. Andrew, do you want to?
So right now, the Blue Box program is 50% funded by the province and producers. And we receive the material revenue from the operating material recovery facility. As we transition to EPR, we will no longer be eligible for that 50%, nor will we have the revenue from the material recovery facility. So although we're not incurring the cost for the program, we also just lose that 50% cost share in parallel.
Will that be offered then to the producers?
The producers are largely who are paying into it
Oh, okay.
already.
Oh, okay.
So it's managed. They'll be managing the cost directly.
Gotcha. Okay. All right. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Councillor Crawford, very good questions. Wanted to ask if there are any further speakers, just acknowledge or notify us. I have Councillor Mulcahy who's next, would like to speak. Good morning. And you're operating virtually, so can you hear us?
Yes, I can. Good
Okay.
morning.
Good morning, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Great questions, Councillor Crawford. You covered a few of the ones that I had as well. And I do concur with the green bin. I think that if we're looking for buy-in, I think we might want to consider, free, because I don't think everybody's going to want an additional green bin. I think there's some that will want it wholeheartedly, and then others don't need it. So I think that needs to be considered as well. So I'm hoping that perhaps we can look at that and see what the buy-in is and react to it appropriately at the time.
Sure, we'll take that under consideration. And what's the launch date for this, Andrew? July 1st, yeah. So, okay, so we'll keep an eye. Yeah, point taken. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. The other question I had, and it's just one simple question. I mean, we had a large debate about this last week at the region about the Sudbury decision, and we have a lot of contracts here that are, already approved or going out for RFP, that sort of thing. And so my question is, within those contracts, are we addressing the Supreme Court decision versus Sudbury? And if we are, how are we?
Through the chair, yeah. When we heard of the decision internally, we did have some meetings to review our contract documents. And as I mentioned, I think at the council meeting, I also had a chance, along with Dan Wachter, who's here, to participate in multiple seminars and webinars that had all the municipal counterparts talk about, how do we deal with this? The best line of defense that all players decided as of now is to make sure you have all the due diligence you can think of in our contracts, because you just can't go to the extent of what they're looking for in terms of essentially getting all our contractors on payroll. To me, that's a different line of contention that I know our legal folks are trying to get into, but we are quite confident, and this was even before the Sudbury case, that we have very strong language in the contract, and I'm not going to compare with what Sudbury had, where it led to that issue, but I leave it at that. But I think our contracts are sound, And also I want to clarify something that we talked about at council. It's as if like we don't inspect our sites. We do have regular inspections and so on. But as I meant, so like, I want give comfort to committees and council, like, we never turn a blind eye to safety missteps in any of our construction sites, but we are not there 24/7. So.
Okay, thank you for that. I mean, part of the Sudbury ruling was that they did actually have inspectors hired within the municipality, and it led them to be considered liable because of that. And so it's a deep concern because, I do want our sites to be safe, clearly. But the flip side of that is because we have those inspections happening, it puts us in that sort of in that pool of being responsible. So, I just want to make sure that our legal is looking at every one of our contracts that have gone out, as well as the ones that are coming, and seeing that, we're doing whatever we need to do in the way of making sure that our contractors are certified and have all of the proper things in place. I know that we can only do so much. This ruling is really turned everybody on its head as far as legalities go. So I'm just, I'm asking for that reassurance, and I'm sure it's being done, but I just wanted to point it out. So thank you.
Yeah, and just to add, Mr. Chair,
Sure.
we have been meeting with Mr. Hunt's team, like including Robert Woon, like, who is going to look at our terms and conditions even more. And our initial scan was we are in, as good grounds as we can without trying to go by the, spirit and intent and every wording in their ruling. So, thank you.
Thank you. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor McKay. Good morning again. And just to add to that, I know that, our legal department and Mr. Hunt are superstars, but we're dealing obviously in a situation where it's quite unreasonable to think that you could, defend from something unless you completely remove potentially your safety sort of patrol on site. That would be, I think, something that would be untenable, or at least something that I would anticipate as being impossible. Through you, Commissioner, could you comment? Because I think that's the only way that you prevent yourself from having any liability.
Yeah, to me, that would be an extreme step, almost irresponsible, because at the end of the day, our inspectors are there for multiple reasons, right? Obviously, some safety input as well, but they're primarily looking to make sure that they're complying with our contracts, the utilities are being relocated to the right spot and so on. So I would hope we don't go to that extent where we just wash our hands off completely for legal reasons, which is all contrary to Vision Zero, traffic safety, everything, right? So.
Certainly. Thank you very much for that, and appreciate the work that's being done. We're in a vulnerable situation regardless of which way we take things. We're the big dog. So anyways, I appreciate what's being done and what's being asked. It's very productive, especially at committee. This is where the work's done. So I'm going to defer to Chair Henry. He has some comments and questions to make. I believe that the floor is yours now. Good morning.
Good morning, thank you. Ramesh, just a couple quick questions related to road construction. You could pick any road, but I'm going to pick Thixton's Road South. It's a non-residential area. So when we're putting the tendering out, are we going to the municipality and asking for extended hours and weekend construction as part of our process?
I can't comment on that particular project, but on a case-by-case basis, like, if we think that will help us in terms of the duration, like we have to, late nights are sometimes a challenge for construction anyway because of like lack of lighting and so on. But we have done that many times, like, certainly on projects, I think on Simcoe from Conlin to Winchester, where we go to the local municipality and they are more than ready to give us the exemption.
But the reason I'm asking, if we do it in advance and we build it into our contracts, then the construction people doing the correct construction know that they can work Saturdays and Sundays. And I'm using Thixton's Road as an example because it supports the industry in South Whitby and South Oshawa. And it's a major project, and if working extended hours, sunrise to sunset, or working Saturdays and Sundays can shorten that project time by a month or two, it makes a big difference for those businesses that are being affected.
Yeah, those conversations certainly happen, like, right at the 30 and 60% design. As for specifically on Thixon Road, like, if I can turn it through the chair to Mr. McGregor, like, if he's able to comment on it, Reed, please.
Hello? Perfect, thank you. Yes, on the Thixon Road project, obviously being an industrial area down there aren't many residences, so getting a noise bylaw exemption, I wouldn't expect to be a contentious issue with Whitby, so we can definitely look at that. We can look at the specifications in the contract now and the number of working days that we've specified per week and the hours that we've specified, and also have those discussions with Whitby in advance of the tender closing to confirm that they can work, extended hours, even overnight for paving. We do sometimes to reduce the impact to the community.
So I think it's important that it's in the tender because it sends a message to the company that wins the award that there's an expectation, and coming to us towards the end of that, knowing that they won't make time and ask in advance, you miss a lot of really good Saturdays that you could possibly work. Next question. I remember, do we still issue compost bins? Or do we make them available for our residents?
Yeah, we do.
So with the challenges, and you look in the fall, especially leaves, but grass can sometimes be a problem as well. Do we incorporate in our messaging for our residents the importance of mulching your leaves? Some properties you could never keep all the leaves on your front lawn, but in my neighborhood, you could easily handle that. So as part of our reuse, recycle, and our information we know, do we actually talk about the importance of leaving your grass clippings and your leaves on your lawn?
Yeah, we do both through social media and other written communications we do.
Thank you. And the next question is, it goes back to the first question. We've got a significant project in Brock related to some water and wastewater, how we're managing that, and some projects that are up there, a significant amount. Same in the contract, working extended hours and weekends to make sure that we get it done on time.
Yeah, maybe I'll have Mr. Wachter comment on when we do it. There are two. First of all, it's a good notion. There may be a couple of challenges. It sometimes limits the contractors who bid, because not everyone is able to provide that labor and so on, and it usually comes with a premium. But at the right place, it's always relevant. Dan, please.
Yeah, thank you. Through the chair, it's an excellent question, but it does stretch the resources of the contractors. We've done it a few times, and we have run into some challenges. These contractors need to resource an additional crew, but they're not utilizing that crew every day. They don't like to work at night that much. It's not as safe, and it does carry quite a premium. So if if it's a high priority project that has a really tight schedule, then we will specify it ahead of time. A contract like this, we're fairly comfortable can be completed in this construction season. So we wouldn't want to limit the field and limit the number of contractors that could bid. So we'd prefer to leave it open once the contract's awarded, and if we encounter any difficulties, we definitely look at that as an option, adding a crew, paying for that additional crew. A lot of these contractors are struggling to find labor and to staff additional crews. So working staff, they normally can work 6 days a week. They work 10, 12 hours plus a day, and then that pretty much hours out those crews. So to source an additional crew can be quite a challenge, and oftentimes it's material and other supply chain issues that has a greater impact on schedule. So we would prefer to leave that case by case, and if we run into troubles in the field, then leave that as a additional option to take advantage of.
One exception, if I may add through the chair, paving is often something we try to put it into the tender, whether it's Saturday, Sunday, or overnight. There's a number of jobs, you would have seen paving happening either overnight or on weekends, right? So,
Ramesh, just because we don't have any money for it, but it is a big topic of conversation in Brock, the bridge in Beaverton. Do we know where that's going?
Well, we are getting weekly updates from MTO, and certainly, till now, excuse or reasoning was like, it's difficult to open the bridge with the lower load limit and you cannot do winter maintenance. So we just earlier this week or late last week, we've reached out to MTO again saying like, looks like winter is behind us almost. Can we not open it now? And they still are somewhat concerned with getting good compliance, like which I share that concern, but at the end of the day, it's their decision. Because we tried doing that once, and the complaints we get in terms of load limit restriction on that bridge was really pathetic. In fact, but there are other means for them to do it. Maybe they need more OPP presence and so on. So we are trying to have a little more aggressive conversation with them, given that like winter is over, because we had heard earlier on like that was the only barrier, the winter maintenance. Now we are past it. We are hoping it's just a matter of time, but again, it's their decision.
Okay, thank you. And Chair, one final question to Finance. There are a number of projects in here that we're going to do the pre-work this year, but we've budgeted the entire amount. And I know what will happen is if we don't start the work, the money goes to reserves. But with such a tight budget, wouldn't doing the pre-work in the budget and moving those items into a budget outside of this budget down the road when we know the work, because it may be years before that work actually starts. We'll know at that time that the amount of money we've put aside won't be nearly enough. There is a little bit of chance with interest rates that we could carry some of that, but I'm wondering if doing the pre-work is what we should be doing and then budgeting in the appropriate year.
So if I may, through the chair, there's been quite a lot of debate across the municipal sector about that for a number of years. A lot of it focuses around increasing the usage of debt by spreading out the cost of capital projects over a long term. The challenge with that is there's a number of dynamics there. One of the things that I think is important to recognize in a cycle of a capital project is that if we have more of it in the budget when that project is commencing, that gives the department the flexibility to proceed with that project rather than having to wait and have backlogs. The other challenge I would suggest to you is that we are staring at a hugely increasing burden of required capital. So Ramesh made a comment about minimum maintenance standards. What we're finding, and he can correct me if I'm wrong, I'm thinking our standard, we've dropped down to about 52%. So we have not made inroads into improving that. And when you look at, we're forecasting over the next couple of years in order to try to address some of those problems that we are going to have to incrementally increase our contribution for capital for the road rehabilitation side of things at increasing it by incrementally 4 million next year, 6 million the year after, 8 million the year after that. So we're staring at a huge amount more work. So if we were looking at less work next year, it would be a tool to smooth that. But we're staring at incrementally more work every year. So there's no financial benefit to deferring budget work that we require this year because next year and incrementally, and that's a concern that Ramesh and I have had a couple of conversations on. So I don't know if Ramesh wants to add anything to that commentary, but the deferral of funding for the next stage of projects, I think would actually cause an incrementally greater challenge with respect to the required incremental funding needed.
If I can add through the chair, the reference Nancy is making, Commissioner Taylor is making is how we are behind in terms of the targeted pavement condition index that this council wanted to aim for 65 as an average pavement condition index. Over the last few years, although we have been increasing financing, we are now at close to between 55 and 60. That's because even with more financing, we are getting fewer kilometers because of the inflation and so on. And if we start to delay the growth projects, which also has a rehab component, your average is going to fall down even more. So that's the challenge that Commissioner Taylor is referring to, and that there is a real challenge because last 7 years, even with some additional funding from the one-time federal gas tax input and so on, that's been a struggle.
Okay, and Chair, just one final question. Our landfill sites, for example, I believe Brock and Oshawa are still considered open landfill sites. They're not closed and signed off as a closed landfill site.
I thought they were closed. They're not.
So they are considered closed by the ministry. So we've got closure plans in place. But we still have continued monitoring of those closed landfill sites.
So before they're fully closed, because right now they're not, wouldn't it be easier to start some form of mining of those landfill sites before you have to, because technically they're open. Am I correct?
I believe there are closure plans in place for both of those sites.
I know, but right now they're open.
So the landfill portion is closed. They're just
So
allowed to
landfills-
operate as a waste
but
management
They're
facility.
still an open, I guess, open dumps. That the paperwork has never been completed to close those facilities. You're in the process now.
No, that's not my understanding. My understanding is the paperwork has been submitted, but I can double check and get back to you.
Okay, because a landfill site that still is open is easier to mine than a landfill site that's closed.
Arguably, that would still be a similar ECA process.
This could be a great sidebar and not take up the time of your meeting, Chair. So I'll move it off and we'll have a different conversation on another day.
Sounds good.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair.
You know what, Chair, great questions. I think especially the last one and the first one. I just wanted to touch on that. I know that there are challenges with works crews in the private sector. They tend to shift from one project to the next depending on what the requirements are for that day. I think the only way around that is, as the Chair indicated, to potentially have that within the tender, and because then they prioritize. And I think it's important, not just with respect to, the indication of advancing within, Saturdays or Sundays, so that the project can be completed. I know in Oshawa, under the Chair's tenure as mayor, as well as the current, we've advanced projects. I know that they've been unpopular with residents, but for a short period, because the pain in that short period is much easier to handle than the extended version of the same pain. The other, I just wanted to ask through you, Commissioner, if we could also align with the plumbing inspectors, in which, for example, I'll give you an indication. Thornton Road in Oshawa, you have it's city operated roadway, but then you have the services that need to be dealt with through the plumbing inspector, and then the region for the shutdown and the connection of water services. You have two main proponents that are working in the same area. Not having them aligned, we have 5 weeks for one, 5 weeks for another, 5 weeks potentially because there's another service that needs to be connected. So aligning them in that same 5 week period could save us potentially, a few months. Just wanted to see if you could take that away, because I know that's a discussion that would align with what the Chair's indicated as being important, because it affects logistics.
Sure.
And the viability of our roadways, and I think it impacts people's quality of life. So, having said that, the last aspect of the questioning relating to, and it's almost like we're using the same brain today, which is scary, is the mining of sites that I know that we've talked about numerous times. And if there's an opportunity, talking about circular economy, that if it's easier to go through the process now before we close the site, it would be a huge win for us on a few different levels. So I won't ask about it. Like the Chair indicated, maybe a sidebar for us to look into, but I know that in Oshawa specifically, there's one site that everyone's sort of been actively looking forward to, and I know in other municipalities as well. So you're doing a great job with the waste service, but those are some of the I think the pressure points that we're getting both politically and functionally, because I do see that you're going to be expanding services, or at least infrastructure in an area to be able to facilitate the provision of service. So on that, I do have Mayor Schumer, and then I have Councillor McDougall, who'd like to ask some questions as well. So I'll defer to Mayor Schumer. I wish you a very good morning, Mayor Schumer. Welcome.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair, and the same to you. And I just want to echo everybody's appreciation to staff. Budgets are never easy. This is definitely a difficult one this year for the region and our member municipalities. And I want to acknowledge all the work that has gone into it. And on that note, actually, and there's a lot of information in your presentation and in the report, and I want to thank you for that. But can you give us an idea? Because obviously this budget has been worked on for quite some time, and then of course Council deliberated its preferred target. Can you give us an idea what has happened in this budget to bring it in line with council's designated target? I think it might be in some places of the report, although it's not always easy to see. But can you give us an idea about what deferrals might be part of it, or if there were actual items taken out of the budget to meet target? Is there any way you can give us an idea what was done to this to meet that target?
Sure. Through the chairman, I can highlight some, and I might rely on Ms. Dunkley for more. The one obvious thing we talked about was the subsidy to the additional green bin, so that helped us a bit. The second most significant thing, which was very concerning to me, was, asset management in terms of road rehabilitation segments. We have a running list of project segments for pavement condition and pavement rehabilitation. We had to drop many segments to try and, that's one. That's the second one. And we did have a number of one-time savings, through the chair. If I can refer to Ms. Dunkley, she probably has a whole list. Thank you.
Thank you. Through the chair, we conducted a line-by-line review of all the expenses over the last 3 or 5 years, and we looked at what we were spending in those years and what we could cut. So, for example, salt inventory, we're carrying a heavy salt inventory, which we're able to reduce. We're now utilizing the EMS system, the Maximo system, so we're doing better tracking of labor hours, and so we're able to reduce some of those. Those are the big ticket items. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. I'm just wondering if it would be possible, maybe some kind of summary of some of this could be sent out, especially, you mentioned the asset management issues that may or may not be addressed through those actions. And I'm wondering if we could get, at a later time, obviously, a bit more of a rundown, because I think, this isn't going to be the first budget where we've got pressures. This is a huge department of the region. And, some of this is going to tie into, levels of service that we are going to provide and that people expect, and maybe some of those need to be changed. Maybe they will have to be changed, and they might go below the levels of service that the public expects, and then it's a juggling act with the budget, obviously. So I think it would be very interesting for us to have that information. You that you might not have it available, so I don't mind if the information flows through at a later point, or through maybe just an email or offline. But with the cycling additions to some of the road work, and you did discuss it, do we have an idea, or could you tell us roughly what that impact is on a per kilometer basis to put that cycling section into our roads?
Yeah, obviously standalone projects would be more expensive, but say a 1 kilometer road segment rehab, if you do wider paved shoulders, I'm going to look for a nod from Mr. Wachter. I would say a 10% premium. Dan?
Yeah, it's going to vary depending on the road segment and the sloping of the ditches, and if it's a rural cross-section, of course. But yeah, definitely in the order of 10 to 20%.
And it really depends on, like Dan says, whether we need more property for the additional 2 meters, we need to move more light poles. Sometimes, those things, make the premium more expensive, so.
Okay, thank you very much. And I'm just wondering, because you did an excellent job outlining the various pressures, not only this year, but going forward. And I'm just wondering, are these pressures, are they all already built into our long-term capital and operating budgets for the department, or are some of these, to be added yet? When we start seeing these long-term budgets, both for operating and capital, it would just be interesting to know if all of these pressures are being addressed in there.
Yeah, typically we have accounted, for example, inflation is a big risk. Yeah. I remember, in the last 2-3 years, we had increased cost for our capital projects, sometimes even in the order of 20 to 30%. right? And because that was the experience the last 2-3 years. But now, typical 4 to 6%. I'm going to look, Mr. McGregor, like on road projects. Typically, over the next 10 years, we would have 5 to 10% increase, but every year we would adjust it down. So known risks such as inflation, we would account for. There are other risks I outlined, such as legislative and regulatory. There are some risks, for example, related to excess soil management, which is becoming a more and more challenging thing to handle. So that's all being factored in our projects now. So any known legislation that's coming in phases, it's been factored in. Inflation typically factored in the 5 to 10%. So those are the two main risks that are factored in our forecast. Certainly, on the revenue side, maybe I'll refer to Commissioner Taylor.
So maybe just a big picture response to that as well, and you will see this in the final documents that come through for finance and admin. We are doing a 10-year capital forecast that projects all the draws on the reserves and reserve funds, for example, and debt. And when you see those numbers accumulated together, that's where you start to see the impact of how this is all fitting together. But some of the risks and an example that the Commissioner Works, is chatting about as well. So the Canada Community Building Fund, which is a federal gas tax, recently they've now talked about the fact that maybe they might add rules around that to have it focused on housing targets. Well, our problem is, and you can see in this budget, the federal gas tax is hugely necessary for us on our road maintenance, road rehab side of things. So if they put rules on that to pull it out of our forecasting of where we're relying on that every year, that will cause a great challenge for us. So that's an example where you'll see a resolution on the finance and admin report. There's some advocacy resolutions that you will see there to address some of those uncertainties and to try to get at least some efforts around not having those make the situation even worse as we pull all the totals together.
Okay, thank you. And that kind of ties into my first question, right? About the, what we did in this budget to meet the council's guideline, and how much of it was deferrals, right? How much are we kicking down the road versus, how much are we actually seeing, in real savings here? Because obviously it's a concern when it comes to, well, if we're kicking a project or part of a project down the road, it's going to be more expensive down the road. And then if there's a risk that some funding that today would be applicable to it may not be tomorrow, then that risk is all that much bigger. I want to thank Chair Henry for bringing up the Beaverton Bridge, because it's an ongoing problem with us up in Brock, particularly the Beaverton area. It is the main entrance into Beaverton, and it's being felt by the local downtown businesses. Can I just ask, because obviously this was a bridge historically, and correct me if I'm wrong, but historically this was a bridge that was under the, I'll call it the asset management plan for the region. And now the province has essentially said, oh, no, it's ours, and we're taking it over for work and everything. And in one way that's great, and in another way, as we're seeing right now, not so great. But can you give us an idea of what the removal of that bridge from the region's, I'll call it realm of responsibility, what that has done for any long term? Because obviously we must have been planning rehab work or something on this bridge. What has that done, or what was that impact in the asset management plan or long term capital work? Do you have that number readily available?
Through the chair, I can certainly give some order of magnitude. In terms of annual inspection, we got about 200 plus structures. Every one of them is inspected once every 2 years. But a bridge like Beaver River Bridge, given that it has experienced some load postings and so on, that gets inspected every year. So, which is part of a big budget item, I would say a few thousands of dollars. We have consultants who inspect a lot of bridges, so this is just one of them, so it goes off the list. But the bigger benefit is, we used to have a line item in our 10-year forecast. I think it was in 2025 to the tune of, I'm going to look for a nod from Mr. G, 5 to 6 million, 7 million. Yeah, it was a $7 million replacement, and today it's probably more like 10 million. We thought it was 7 million 2-3 years ago, so it's probably more like 10 million. But the point being, like now it's going to be on the MTO tab, so it's good news, bad news in that sense.
Okay, thank you. It's just interesting information to have as we continue our battle with the MTO on it, and hopefully we're going to see a delegation with the minister down at Good Roads. So I want to thank you for that information. And I think the rest of my questions were answered. So I want to thank you very much once again for the work going into this budget.
Yeah, Mayor Schumer, thank you for the questions. I know that Chair Henry and I were out in the area and we had a pancake breakfast out there, and there was a lot of talk about that bridge. I just wanted to see another angle. We talked about the OPP, but wouldn't it be MTO that would be involved in some of the load restrictions? Would it not be prudent for us to reach out through you, Commissioner, to MTO and say, listen, we're having issues with the adherence to the load restrictions or whatever the case may be, and have them do the inspections as opposed to having the police there? Because I think it would be, I mean, it's either that they do that or provide us with the 10 million to replace the bridge, because at the end of the day, it has, as we heard Chair Henry and I and Councillor Jubb at the time, it has impacted the residents of the area, and Mayor Schumer's indication.
Yeah, through the chair. No, it's completely in the hands of MTO. It's their bridge, it's their asset. So the reference I was making to OPP is one of the reasons we believe, and they haven't put this in writing, their reluctance to reopen it, even though we don't need winter maintenance vehicles, so load limit is not, the main concerns are from passenger vehicles, right? So you would think like from a load limit perspective, they can go through. But the challenge that MTO has mentioned to us and which we can understand is how do you really make sure that 24/7 you don't have tandem trucks and like all the construction activity happening in that area as well. How do you make sure that they are becoming non-compliant? In fact, in the early days when they had all those pylons to close the bridge, the first 2-3 days was really horrible. People were just driving through the pylons and there was zero compliance. So they brought OPP for a couple of days and it got better, but then they put some solid barriers. Now it's working. So that's their reluctance. But if I had my crystal ball, and again, it's just mine.
Yeah.
I think it's a matter of time before they'll reopen it, at least for passenger cars and light trucks and so on. So again, a week hasn't gone by when myself or Mr. G has not reached out to MTO, wanting an update, knowing the importance of the bridge, not just to Beaverton and Brock Township and the region as well, and through Mayor Schumer and Councillor Jubb. Yeah, we have tried to keep the community informed as much as we can. No good news, but I think no news is usually not as good either. So we're trying to keep them updated as much as we hear from MTO. But I want to make it very clear, it's really an MTO call at the end of the day, because if their professional engineers are reluctant to reopen it without load limit restrictions, or even with load limit restrictions, we really don't want to have a conflicting opinion other than urging them to be transparent on what is delaying the opening and what are they trying to do to address the issues that's delaying it.
And I think it's been brought up in good faith, because you can't have it both ways. In this particular area, I don't want to prolong the discussion, but I do think that we need to find a way, either through the chair or the mayor of the area, because it's a rural area. It's pretty untenable to expect that, just normal sort of vehicular traffic exist and not, the larger sort of truck traffic. It's also untenable to have the MTO there or OPP all the time. So at some point, either replacement or rehabilitation needs to occur. And I'm glad that we're in communication with MTO, but I think we're going to have to come to a long-term solution. Otherwise, we're going to be discussing this over and over. And and I just want to be transparent in that at the time of Chair Henry and I and Councillor Jubb being in the area, we were accosted numerous times by residents that were concerned, not angry, but concerned with the viability of the bridge and also with the logistics for the area. And we don't want to ignore that. So that's important for us to continue down this path. So for Mayor Schumer, I know that work's being done at this point, but it's definitely a long-term solution that we're looking for. Now, we have the one and only Councillor McDougall, who's going to be asking some questions next, and I'd like to defer to him, wish him a very good morning. If there's anyone else, because we don't have anyone else on the schedule asking questions about the budget, I would encourage you to signal us, because unless, we're missing something virtually, Councillor McDougall is the last speaker. So Councillor McDougall, the floor is yours. Good morning.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, for allowing me as a visiting councillor to ask some questions. Thank you very much for your commitment to active transportation and the possibilities of bringing multimodal transportation along with DRT, into the realm of the future, where hopefully the region can, as we move forward into the decades to come, to see reduced traffic levels as people choose alternative methods to get around. I do have a question on that with regards to the uplift of paved shoulders, and my question was, you indicated, I think Dan had indicated that it was a 10 to 20% uplift to do a paved shoulder for active transportation purposes. Is that a 10 to 20% uplift over doing a regular extended width shoulder to extend the life of the asphalt that we regularly do, or is that the uplift for the entire paved shoulder?
Yeah, that premium does serve both purposes, right? Like the wider shoulder, extends the pavement life because it minimizes or reduces the shoulder erosion. At the same time, it provides a wider platform for cyclists. So I think it's one thing, whether it's 10% or 20% premium, that serves both purposes, because it's cyclists, it's not really built to the same structure as the vehicular traffic anyway, right? So the answer is it's a combined benefit.
Okay, so we would be doing the regular paved shoulder at a certain uplift anyway. The additional 0.7 meters plus the lane buffering, the double white line, or the embossing of the asphalt, whatever we're doing, is a small percentage of that uplift, not the entire 10 to 20%.
Exactly. It's just the additional, markings and asphalt and the additional piece. Yeah.
Thank you. I just wanted to make the clarification that it's not the entire 10 to 20% that's being put in place just for active transportation. That's
fair enough.
It's
yeah.
a small portion. Okay,
Yeah.
thank you. I did also want to ask a question. On slide 15, it had indicated traffic signal design. And I think in the presentation there was one roundabout to be constructed this year. And I believe through Vision Zero, one of the moves forward was to try and have more roundabouts and less traffic signals. So my question is with regards to, there's about 15 new traffic signals being looked at or put in this year, but only one roundabout. Do we look at those locations for the consideration of roundabouts rather than traffic signals?
Yeah, every intersection that warrants, through the chair, every intersection that warrants a traffic signal is analyzed for the alternative of a roundabout. Clearly, there are two extremely different alternatives. Many times, even if there's a roundabout that makes the business case, we still do it as a temporary signal, because a roundabout can be 5 to 7 years, whereas a traffic signal the same year. So in 2025, if there's only one roundabout, in the 10-year forecast, we have at least 8, I think close to 10 roundabouts, certainly many in Clarington, in Uxbridge, and a few in Brock Township. So because roundabouts are expensive, right? Like the one we did in 57 and 3, that was about $6 million. Because they're very property intensive. At the end of the day, it's a good project, but it does take time and it's much more expensive. For example, region of Waterloo, I know they have about 32, 35 roundabouts. But they've been doing that over the last 10, 15 years. Others such as us, even York, we're all catching up. And so to your question, we always do a comparison and go with the one, sometimes based on urgent need. Just because we do a signal, it doesn't mean it's the ultimate. We sometimes do monitor it. That's what we did for 57 and 3. We had a temp signal there in front of the fire station for about 5-6 years. And eventually, we got all the property in the 4 quadrants. It did take about 5 years. And I think it's about $5-6 million a year.
Okay, thank you. And then I guess further on the same questioning, through you, Mr. Chair, do we save the prioritization of roundabouts for I'm going to say higher risk intersections, so i.e. 57 and 3 is a high-speed intersection as compared to, I noticed some of the other locations are more locations where the speeds would be much lower than those.
Yeah, there are many input to, doing a roundabout versus a signal, but one of the significant ones is the collision history. If there's a lot of head-on collisions, because that's what like a roundabout is like, does magic, right? There's no head-on collisions unless someone runs through the roundabout median. So typically collision history is number one, and then turning volumes. The other negative factor about roundabouts is if there's a lot of pedestrian volume. And I don't think traffic engineers have the ideal solution yet to accommodate pedestrians in a roundabout. So many considerations, but collision history is number one.
Okay, very good. And then a question in terms of the waste management for the population. I often like to have on my screen say, a live stream of, well, I'm going to say Hukipa and Maui, which is where all the wave sailing and windsurfing goes on. But I can't help but think a live stream of the pit where the garbage is dumped in, so people could actually see when they go to Walmart when they go to the big box stores and they purchase whatever they're purchasing, and the end result of that is in 10, 15, 20 days or even a year, it's going into the waste stream. They would have a much better idea, or I would hope, think twice about some of their purchases that are just ultimately destined for landfill. Is there any possibility that we could allow a stream like that?
We could certainly look at it. There is care and control of that site to a contractor right now, so we'd be dealing with a couple different IT systems doing through that. But it is something we could investigate.
Yeah, just from a waste diversion strategy in terms of I don't think that the populace generally really thinks about what's going to happen at the end of the day when they buy whatever product and packaging and everything that they buy, it's predominantly just going to waste.
And to your point, certainly when we do the tours and people see that volume, which is the pit at the facility is roughly a week's worth of waste from the region, it certainly you see the eyes widen a little bit.
And further through you, Mr. Chair, are those tours available to the public on a semi-regular basis?
We have a contact list, and so we schedule them as kind of enough people sign up.
Okay.
Otherwise, groups come in regularly. The facility also participates in, previously National Public Works Week, and other potential celebrations for Durham's 50th anniversary, which are open to the public as well.
Very good. Well, thank you. I will definitely push that out there. And then the last item is just thank you for bringing up the topic of on the bridge, Mr. Chair. I head by there twice a weekend, every weekend, and I often wonder as to why the bridge in Beaverton was closed, knowing how significant that bridge is to that community. The only question I would have back to Ramesh, back through to MTO really is how do any of us in the lower tier municipalities, how are we expected to ensure that our rural roads, which have generally most of them have weight limits on them, if there's any form of bridge on them at all, how are we expected to ensure that there's only the users have the correct amount of weight in their vehicles?
Through the chair, well, it's usually not an issue when there's no load limit restriction, right? The maximum load a truck can put on the road is what I think about 62 tons. And I don't think there's a configuration even when fully loaded would exceed that weight, so it's not an issue. So when you have a load restriction, I think this one they were recommending 10 to 11 tons, which is which is no more than passenger cars and maybe some pickup trucks and so on. Certainly not winter maintenance vehicles at all. So 24/7, you're not monitoring to make sure there's no construction trucks or even buses. School buses was a big concern for MTO because there are school buses on the bridge used to go with kids. That was a big problem. So it's not, enforcement is not an issue like when there's no load limits. When there is load limit, that's when, especially that low, 9 to 10 tons, it becomes a problem.
Very good. Okay. Thank you for everything that the Works does. And it's certainly, Councillor Crawford indicated the quantity of projects that you have in here is phenomenal. It's a lot of information and a lot of balls to keep in the air and keep moving forward. Thank you very, very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor McDougall, for your interest. Also for bringing up, the roundabouts. I think it's important to understand. We're trying to mitigate some of the impacts. The MUP would be another one. I know that there's been challenges with trying to align the MUPs and some of the signalization. That it's counterintuitive that you would have on a roundabout, but that we would have because of, these multi-use paths that are going to go through some of these areas. So I appreciate that staff are looking at how to optimize and mitigate impacts and advance them, because it is something that I think has been successful so far, and hopefully we can continue on that path. Pun intended. I'm going to move to Councillor Nicholson. We lost him, I think. I just want to signal to Councillor Nicholson that we did have you on as a speaker. If you're still there, because I do know that some are having some technical issues, we're operating both in the council chamber as well as virtually. Councillor Nicholson, can you hear us? The floor is yours if you wish to speak. Good morning. Okay, so I believe we're going to move forward unless Councillor Nicholson signals me again, and I just wanted to ask clerks procedurally now, moving forward from here. I do have some questions, and I'm not going to debate, but I do have questions, and they pertain to the blue box savings for the city of Oshawa, in that there's 2.6 that will be saved. And I think the general question from Oshawa council members as well as staff and residents would be, does that then come back to the tax base? How does that savings, result in terms of actuals? Is that a year over year, or is that just a one-time based on the tender?
So there will be year-over-year savings, and that does factor into the overall tax base.
Excellent. So it's not like the region's saving and Oshawa's not getting back. It is being accounted for within the tax base for the city of Oshawa?
I would have to defer that to finance.
Through you,
Sure.
Chair.
Sure,
So
Director.
the savings, the net savings from the blue boxes we talked about in the slides for 2024 is attributable to the capital infrastructure improvements that are at the Oshawa Waste Management Facility. But the pluses and the minuses that get us all to our bottom line of the budget, that then gets put into tax rates that are forwarded out to each of the local municipalities and billed through your local municipalities' tax bills. So the region's portion of waste for those parts of the region's budget that pertain to the services that are provided in those municipalities. So for the processing of the blue bin and the collection of the blue bin, those rates are uniform across all of the municipalities. When it comes to the collection of garbage and green bin, we provide the region. We provide those services for all of the municipalities with the exception of Whitby and Oshawa, which provide those services themselves, and those services are built into their budgets and are collected through those local tax rates. But for all of the other municipalities, when we do the regional tax rates, the tax rates that go back to Oshawa and Whitby exclude collection of garbage and green bin. And for all of the other municipalities, it does include those services. I hope that answers the question.
It does, and I think that they're going to be, and I appreciate that, because I think there's likely going to be some further questions. And at this point, I just want to thank everyone involved. I know that when my friend, the illustrious mayor of Uxbridge and chair, indicated that I'd be on the hot seat today, I came in yesterday and I saw there was a ton of work going on. And I know it predates yesterday. There's all kinds of stuff that behind the scenes, both finance and the works department actively have been working to do to mitigate impact as well as optimize services. And I think that there are three things just from the presentation that I've noted that I want to make sure are considered in that if changes in service levels are being requested by any council member, that I encourage whomever, because I'm typically more prone to asking difficult questions or being out of order at times, and it can happen to any one of us. But I think with the amount of work that goes into considering service level increases or changes, let's say, I don't want to say decreases, but changes, that we contact finance and the works department well in advance of the council meeting, because I do think it's a very serious consideration, and there's a number of dominoes that may fall as a result of changes in service levels. So that's one thing. The other is when considering Chair Henry's remarks, and I do align with them in trying to wrap our heads around, whether a full project costing is going to be budgeted or whether, it's phased. There's got to be a consideration on how we, align that, because I do believe it's going to come from other council members as well. It's just, there's a lot of pressure with the budget, and I think if there's an appetite to move to a phased costing, if the full project is not going to be completed in this year, then that's something that we'll have to look at as well. And I think that just any other questions relating to this particular budget, as we've seen through the presentation, whether, council members and the committee have asked them here. I know that staff are open to them following the meeting as well. So I just encourage everyone to try to do that before the next council meeting, noting that we still haven't approved, the budget, or we just received the presentation, but I just want to make sure that that's on the table. So having noted that, I want to thank Councillor Crawford, Councillor Mulcahy, Chair Henry, Councillor Schumer, and Councillor McDougall for the questions, and encourage anyone else who may have questions or considerations to provide their input and feedback before the council meeting. Moving on, just wanted to seek a vote. I'm being kept in line here procedurally by our clerks, and I thank them very much for that. So thank you, Sarah and Sarah. The recorded vote's been asked by Chair Henry, and I believe that we do this in a more technological way here at the region than we do at the city. So we'll go to the vote.
Just looking for Councillor Cook, if you are present. Councillor Cook, final call.
Okay, the vote has been taken, and it's unanimous. The report passes. We want to thank staff very much for the work that they've done, and look forward to the report and the budget coming forward at the council meeting. Procedurally, just wanted to indicate that we have 7.1 on the table now. Just need a mover and a seconder. Moved by Councillor Yamada, seconded by Councillor Crawford. Any in opposition? Hearing and seeing none, that motion has moved and been approved. 7.2, motion, mover and seconder, Yamada, and seeing anyone online? Do we have a seconder on that motion? Councillor Mulcahy is a seconder. Any in opposition? Any questions as well? I don't want to rush through it, but I don't hear any and I don't see any online. That's been duly moved and passed. 8.1, mover and a seconder. Okay, we'll go to B actually for 7.2. Can we get a mover and a seconder for B? And if there are any questions, please signal me. Councillor Yamada, seconder. Councillor Crawford. Any questions? Seeing and hearing none, that motion has been passed. 8.1, mover and a seconder. So that's for A. Councillor Yamada and Councillor Mulcahy. B, mover and a seconder. So we've done B. We're moving on to C. Councillor Crawford, a seconder, Councillor Mulcahy, and D, standardization of sole source acquisition of. We have a mover, Councillor Yamada, seconder, Councillor Mulcahy. Thank you. There weren't any in opposition, Madam Clerk, because I haven't been signaled, but I do typically move forward quite quickly. If there's any in opposition of the reports or of the motions that have been moved, please, I move quickly, so just signal me. I haven't heard any thus far. So moving forward, we do have a date for the next meeting, but before getting to that, I do have some considerations for other business that I did discuss with Director Hubble. Any further from the committee? Visiting councillors, other business? So I have Chair Henry. The floor is yours.
So just a quick thank you to staff. I noticed that the railing is gone at the parking garage and the ramp is open, so that will make a lot of people happy here. Staff also have been working on the door, so the parts for the revolving door are sitting out front. And I believe, and correct me if I'm wrong, the lift from the lower level to the upper level was passed this week and is in operation now, I believe.
Yes, correct.
Yeah, so great job by staff to get those projects finished.
Chair Henry, I never thought I'd say this, but like the renovation, I got a little bit of a tour yesterday from Commissioner Jagannathan and saw everyone working, you know, the spaces, including spaces where folks could have lunch and meet and just, you know, it was really nice to see the functionality, the cleanliness, and just the overall atmosphere is really refreshing. So I know that significant investment went into it, but I think the payback in the corporate culture is one that we look forward to, and I want to congratulate those who are involved, because it is something that I know that the commissioner and I were really excited to see. It was a very nice buzz. On that note, there are a lot of functional aspects that you've indicated that relate to accessibility that are advancing, and that we're really excited to see, because we champion that both at the municipal level as well as the regional level. So those involved and those working in the building, and anyone that may be working virtually and hasn't seen it, please come in. It is really, really something to see, and I want to congratulate the chair for his vision on that. I'd like to ask just a question under other business, and I know that I brought this up to the commissioner as well as the director so that nobody was blindsided. I think there's some consideration that we're making across the board, whether it's in finance or it's here at Works, and especially in the municipalities at the planning level when it comes to accessory apartments and the pressures relating to targets. So obviously our planning department and economic development be involved here, and housing being at a crisis point according to many of the reports that we're pressured by. The provinces mandated and legislated 3 units per property, providing you meet the criteria across the board for that particular property. You could qualify for 3 units. To qualify for the Housing Accelerated Fund, you'd have to have up to 4 units. Now, the question that I ask, and I do this openly and proactively, because these are pressures that are now being legislated onto us, amongst others. And we talk about development charges, but this one in particular relates to capacity. And I wanted to ask through you, Commissioner, to Director Hubble. We have applications for accessory apartments coming forward. The notion is, we're just giving them out like candy, and they're impacting neighborhoods and therefore causing a strain on our services. Capacity is not there. We need to stop doing that. I'm just giving you a hypothetical, and also, what the rhetoric could be, either politically or actively, at a public level. If someone were to ask the question, and that's what I'm asking today, just to be able to insulate and shield and essentially provide transparently what our position is, because it is a consideration that's valid. Do we have capacity for the accessory apartments that are being mandated by the province of up to 3 per property, be it for water and sewer?
Okay, yeah, through the chair, I'll answer the question from just a water and sewer perspective. So we're constantly analyzing through our partners in water billing and through planning on the densities of the units and the usage of water. So we're looking at real stats. And at this time, on our assessment, we don't have any concerns with servicing capacity as it relates to the accessory units, of 2 to 3 per unit.
I appreciate that. That's a relief, because it is a consideration that we need to wrap our heads around and make sure that we're meeting that sort of requirement. It's fine and dandy to have these accessory apartments mandated, but then we have to have capacity in the services. Outside of the equation of the criteria. Now, a part of that is we've planned communities a certain way, including industrial sectors, where you would have much more pressure under the previous planning envelopes, where these industrial sort of nodes would have more employment, more usage, and more capacity issues. how does it stand today and what we're meeting in terms of the reality of what we're seeing, the development in these industrial sort of nodes?
So a lot of the recent industrial have been warehousing.
Yeah.
Now, when we size our infrastructure to accommodate those industries, we have region guidelines that we follow for the usage of an expected industrial property. And we're looking at the ultimate industrial property. It might be a warehouse today, but it might be repurposed in the future to be a manufacturing or something that has a heavier usage than what's proposed. So we are building the capacity into our design for the ultimate use of that land, not the current planned use, which is the warehousing. So we are, we're not oversizing our infrastructure so much, but we are planning our infrastructure around the ultimate densities or usage from those industries.
Okay, so just to recap, that aspect leaves us with some optimism as well, because we're not using anywhere close to the capacity that we would require under previous industrial sort of developments. And furthermore, you're citing that, you know, there is a good handle and an understanding that the legislation that we're being imposed, we do have the capacity for these accessory apartments. Is that correct?
To both statements, yes, that is correct.
Thank you very much for clarifying that. Rather appreciate that on the public record. And I hope that if there are any further questions regarding other business, I haven't been signaled virtually. Anyone in the council chamber that would like us to bring up other business? If not, I got a motion to adjourn from Chair Henry and seconded by Councillor Yamada. And I want to thank everyone involved in the meeting. It was a very good working meeting, especially Madam Clerk and Madam Clerk for keeping me in line. I really appreciate that and wish everyone a very good morning. Thank you.